You're welcome, sir. Now, Jack Rich is a man of honor. He is an entrepreneur with a difference. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Rich. Okay, now, owing to what we just saw, your background, it looks like you lost your parents at a very young age. And it beats me how you did it. I mean, a regular person would have said, no mom, no dad, all is lost. So please tell me, how did you do it?
Thank you very much. So, all protocol duly observed. Today is a wonderful day for me, I believe strongly, because I am visiting a state that was created just 1 year after I was born. You know? Because I was looking at the data, I saw that this great state where my wife also came from, which is a native of the state, was actually created in the month of February 1976. So I'm happy to be in this great sunshine state.
You're welcome. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. So basically, I tell you what, I've seen a lot as a young boy growing up, though I wasn't born in the village. We were born in the city of Port Harcourt in River State. But, as life may have it, sometimes God allows certain things to happen to you without you planning for it. At the age of 7, I found myself back in my mom's hometown with my dad and other siblings. I didn't know what happened. My father was a retired soldier that had bullet wound during the Nigerian Civil War. And he met my late mother when he was about 27, and they got married and gave birth to a couple of children. And I knew my father to be a man with a metal fist. You know what I mean? For you to have a soldier father.
Yes, I do know.
So each time when I was a young kid, he tried to, my mother goes away, we're praying for her to come back so she can rescue us. Because it doesn't correct you if you do anything wrong. It corrects you through, you know what I'm saying?
You're beaten.
But we found ourselves in the village. And back in the village, life was really tough. In the city of Port Harcourt, life wasn't also very good. My mother was a petty trader that, had a little kiosk, where she sold tomatoes and all these petty things, And back in the village, she also had to do the same thing for the family to survive. When I got to the village, a lot of the village children were without pants, because you have to go by boat for about 12 hours, because it's not motorable up until today. In the village, I look alive, differently. A boy that was born in the city, there wasn't water, potable water. The community, drink from us, stagnant, well water that, it's just alive. It was just not human. There weren't any hospitals. Government was far away from the community. I didn't even realize that my village was an oil-producing, community. From 1958 up until this day, we had bunch of oil and gas activities and all that. But they didn't care about these communities. They didn't care. We had Shell, Chevron, and other guys. Chevron, super did pretty good. But the truth of the matter is, I grew up in such a village where those with, sores on their leg will walk into the water, reptiles, habiting in there, and that's where the villagers fetched from. And that was alive. So my mother took ill, while I was in the village, and she was always going in and out of the village trying to get treatment. And one of the times she got ill, she wasn't able to return back home. And I had to go looking for her. Met her, in the hospital where she was trying to treat herself. She couldn't walk. Life in my very eyes, I saw my mother's health deteriorate. And while I was there, an auntie of ours came and moved out of the hospital, and I didn't know what happened, and dumped her somewhere, and my mother couldn't survive, and she died. So I found myself at the age of 9 and 10 being a village kid, and trying to go fishing with old, family siblings and all that, and trying to survive. This is a boy that was in primary, I was in about primary 2 when I was like 6 years old and 7. And back in the village, I was in the village till I was 15. You can imagine I was in primary school till 15. What was I doing? Going fishing, going to school today. Tomorrow you have to go looking for a means of survival. And one day I said to myself, sorry, I wasn't born in this village. I'm going to return back to the city. And I said, where is even my father? So when I boarded the boat, I didn't have single cash in my pocket. And I had to be a senior laborer in the boat trying to do menial jobs so I can at least be excused of paying, the fare. So when I got to Port Harcourt, it was night when I got to the city, and I didn't know which way to go. And then I reached out to a few persons back in the village who say, hey, I think your father is somewhere. So I had to work hard and go to look for him. He was remarried, and stepmother didn't want to see us. Kicked us out of the house, and I was just wandering around, sleeping under the bridges, and sometimes, just living a life that was like without any form or direction. But as a young boy, I remembered when my mother was in the village, she mentioned that, if I die, the kids will suffer. So I held on to that word and I said, no, I would not suffer. I'm going to make it. So life in the village was tough. Life in the city was tough. I didn't know where to lay my head. I didn't have cash. I didn't have anything. I was just wandering around trying to help people to get job done so I can earn some nairas to feed. And in the course of doing that, I encountered a woman. And this woman looked at a young, lanky boy that was tall. And she said to me, who are you? And I told her my story. And she said, okay. She sends me on an errand and all this type of stuff. And each time she asked me to go to the local market to buy her items for, the family use, she will give me transportation for like 3 stops. But you know what I would do as a young village boy? I remembered how life was. I will always like to take some, leg work, and I'll do some, some wrist work so I can save some money. And then when I go to the market, I will make a lot of purchase and also try to save some money. And then when I get back, I give her everything. She said, I told you to, I said, no, I bought everything. So when she measured what I bought and the leftover, she said, how did you do this? I said, I just like to do it. But if she sends a sibling down to go and buy the same stuff, they come back asking for more. And she said, next time you'll be the one to keep doing this. And then one day she said to me, how did you come about this idea? And then a word came, $1 million formula. That's what I use. From that day, she said, calling me $1 million. And she told her husband to get me hooked up and get me a job. And the first job I got as an employed young boy, I was paid 45 naira a day. So what was I doing? A laborer. I didn't have skills. But again, I said I have to go to school. I tried to struggle to go to school. Today in school, the next day out, because I didn't even have money to feed, not to talk about taking care of school bills. And one day I said, no, why didn't you go back to the village and then complete your senior secondary school exam? So I went to the village to write the exams. Unfortunately, we were told to pay some 500 naira a day. I didn't have 500 naira. But I read pretty well. I understood the syllabus. I read through it, and I knew what was going to come. And in the classroom, in the exam hall, they kept me on a separate seat. And before they knew I was done. So when I was walking by the village, the supervisor said to somebody who happens to be my late mother's younger brother, so this gentleman didn't want to pay the 500 naira contribution. So really? Okay, don't worry. He will rewrite it. To cut a long story short, when the result came, I found my name completely erased as a candidate. So I didn't have anything, and I was so frustrated, and I came back to the city in looking for a job. But one thing I discovered, and I told myself, is that I am going to make it. Irrespective of the challenges, I said I will make it. But I held on to the word that rang a bell in my head that my late mother told me. A local tomato seller that felt that if she dies, that was the end of the life for our children. I said, I will make it. Hard work pays. The most important thing is, irrespective of the condition that you find yourselves in, you have to stay focused. Because in life, there is a time to polish. There is a time to shine and there's a time to launch. A lot of us, when we go through challenges, we just give up. We just can't hold on. My life is likened to a person who had a shipwreck, and suddenly there was a rescue call by the helicopter. I will ask you this question. If a rope is thrown at you for rescue, the rescue rope, and you know that the ship is broken into two, and you just have 1 second to make that decision to hold on to that rescue rope, and if in the course of your scare, if you lose that rope, what are you going to hold on to? That was a life as a young survivor I had to leave. I held on to that word, and I kept on pushing on. And miraculously, an American firm came hiring people. And then I asked someone, what skills do I need to go for that interview? And then they say you need the skills of a mechanical fitter, a rigger, a scaffolder, electrician, or whatever. And those type of stuff sounded so alien because I never heard of those stuff before. Because as a laborer working for the 5,000 hour a day job, what I was doing was just, working with the carpenters, the bricklayers, and if they want to repair any of the buildings around, because it was a construction company. As a laborer, they send you to the field. You have to break the walls, knock off the floors, the terrazzo floors, the tiles. They take me to the jetty where they have vessels anchoring. They want to break it up because there's a leak. I was a chief laborer. They get me a compressor with a jackhammer to break all the floors, a concrete thickness of about 300 millimeter. Some of the thickness about 400 millimeter. I have to break all that out. And that's the job I was doing. I didn't have any skills. But something said to me that you're going to make it. And sometime when I go to work, you know what I do? Despite the fact that the job was a low-paid work, I will tell the supervisor, can I work all through the night? He said, how? I said, I like to work all through the night. The reason is that I didn't have where to lay my head after work. And the supervisor will say, well, we have a target to get the job finished in just within a short period. If you work overnight, you make some allowances. I said, super. I will walk all through the night trying to break up all the large areas of concrete floor with a compressor. I was so energetic. I didn't know where the energy was coming from. The next morning, 7 a.m. when they resumed, all the floors have been broken up, packed and cleared. And the supervisor was a French guy, Mr. Patrick Conneau. That was his name back in the days. So he would look at me at this young boy. He said, how is this boy able to do it? And I said, I didn't know. And at the end of the month, after so much of a time, I would earn like 1,050 naira. And yet I couldn't afford my transport bill. I couldn't afford to eat. So when this opportunity came, they said, I need these skills. And they said, but you don't know anyone. I said, don't worry. I went and met one old man. As a young boy who lived the life of an orphan, the only life I had to live with to stay straight was identifying a good ministry. I became a deeper lifer at the age of 10, 11, and 12. So that helped me all the way when I came back from the village. I was a preacher boy, 4 a.m. in the morning, I was going preaching. That's what I was doing. And then I remember that with God, everything is possible. Everything. Everything.
Well, I agree with you.
So what happened was that I went and met an old man, and he taught me basic skills. How to tie marine rope. A couple of names that I didn't want to bore you with. Those are technical things. And then he said, son, go, you're going to succeed. So when I went to that U.S. company, the guy running the interview was a man from Texas. So he looked at me. He said, he just threw a rope at me, one of the rope at me, and held on to one of the hedge and threw it at me. And something said, pick it up. So I picked it up, and he said, I want you to get me a bowline, son. And I just pop. And then I threw it back. I said, wow, go get your ID card. That's how my life changed.
Wow.
Wow. From there, from earning 45 naira a day, my life changed to 45,000 naira per month.
Wow.
And when I got to the field, I became a 24 hours boy. The key thing is when I got to the field, I didn't have skills. I went looking for the supervisors. After work, I got meeting them, knocking at their door. I saw you doing this. What does it mean? And I'll pick a note. Whatever he says, I write it down. I started educating myself because I saw boundless opportunities. I started looking for skills. I started acquiring all the skills in the oil field. And from there, the white man looked at me and said, wow, this boy is good. And after the job, when I came back, I didn't have a job again. Somebody hired me, and one day I said to myself, hey, I think I've acquired enough skills. Right now, I want to establish my business. I was barely 23 years old then. I didn't have any cash because the Nigerian company that I worked for then was paying me 20 grand. So when I came back, I rented a room and all that, and that was all. So I went and met a gentleman who happened to be a director in that firm. I said, hey, I want to quit this job. He said, why? Do you have another job? I said, no, I think I want to do business. How do you understand business? I remembered my late mom was a petty trader. She knew how to put those numbers together. She knew how to make an economic policy, an economic decision. So he said, okay, let me think about it. But then I went looking for how can I establish a company. And then somebody said to me, there's an organization called the Corporate Affairs Commission. I went looking for it, and I got there, and I went to meet the deputy registrar. And I said, I want to set up a company. He looked at me, and then he said, 25,000 naira. Do you have the money? I said, I'm coming with the cash tomorrow. I didn't even have 25,000 naira. And I went back to this gentleman, and I said, I want to set up a company. I need you to give me 25,000 naira. He said, okay, tomorrow. And the next day, he gave me 25,000 naira. I didn't ask for 26,000 naira. I didn't even have a way to get a taxi back home because I had to go through another 3 stops. So when I gave the name and gave the money to this gentleman, I wrote the name and gave it to him. It took 9 months for the company to be incorporated. So when I went back home, I started thinking. So I'm speaking to you young guys because I need to motivate you to understand that you don't have to have a helper for you to create opportunities. A helper that you need is just your mind. Your mind. That's a helper that you need. Irrespective of the kind of environment that you come from. Your mind. I've gone through everything in life. I've been through all the most turbulent part of life you can think about. I could have been a bad boy, but I said no, I would never. I believed in the energy that I have. I believe in that energy resource that I have. And I believe that what you need is that energy resource that develop what I call a centrifugal, ideation. Ideation enables you to change your environment, a shift in your reasoning, a shift in paradigm. It doesn't matter if your mom is poor or your father is poor. It doesn't matter if your mother or your father abandoned you. It doesn't matter. What matters is you and where you're going. You have to dream dreams. Irrespective of where you find yourself, you have to do something. Because there's always something to do. And when this company got, put in, it took 9 months. And I said, what would I be doing in 9 months? I didn't have any job. And then I said, okay, I had a few friends that say, hey, come on, just help me like 50 naira today, 30 naira tomorrow. I want to go to one company. And when they got me like 20, 30 naira, I go to the business center. And then I will create a letterhead and create a business card. And then I will take some legwork again. And if the company is just about 300, 500 meters away, I will do some legwork. And then I'll pick a taxi that is unpainted. And then I'll sit at the back of the car as the owner of the car. And then I tell the taxi guy, you take me to this gate. When you get there, when we get into the gate, hang on for 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, you're free to go. And then when I got into the gate, I was so articulate because at that point in time, I had skills. I could trade and create market.
I think what you just said leads me to my next question I was going to ask, but you practically have answered all my questions. It's like you were reading my mind. You had skills. A lot of unemployed people, I don't know if it's skill that is the problem. So in like 1 minute, what do you think is the problem with unemployment and how do we solve it?
Okay, basically this summit is about the unemployment summit. And I'll tell you what, for this state, you're not doing badly. Let me be very honest to you, because I looked at the numbers. Your population is about 5,080,000. So you're not doing badly. And your working population is about 3.4 million. And of the 3.4 million, you have 2.5 million already employed. So it means you're just struggling with 900,000. of your working population. That's what you need to turn things around. But I tell you what, the state is also rich in terms of consumption. When I look at the numbers, I saw that 2019 records show that your consumption level is about 1.2 trillion naira. 1.2. Of the 12 trillion naira Southwest consumption, you have 1.2 trillion. So it means you have the consumption. But I also look at how the state generates revenue through, pay as you earn, payee. That accounts about 60%. But you see, the challenge again is that you are dependent on the federal, allocation. So about 66% thereabout of your funds, your revenue comes from the federal government. So your revenue today is about 25 billion. So what you need is very simple. How to turn around the 900,000 unemployed into the employment value chain is to provide, and again, you are 18 local government area with about 203 words. So I like to take this down to the microeconomic necessities. And how do you do that? 900,000, you have to make a plan for about 4 years. Sorry, sister. 4 years is about 900,000. So if you divide 900,000 by 4, that's about 225,000, which is the population you're going to deal with. So I want to spread out by each word because you need to localize opportunities. That's the most important thing. Localize opportunities. So by each word, you're going to be having about 1,111 per word. We'll be looking for your help.
So localize opportunity is what we should do.
Yeah. Now,
right.
To do that, you need the private sector partnership. And that private sector partnership is what I call developing an entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem that brings in the government and then gets in the corporate. I'm very happy that our mother is here. And then you have to bring in the entrepreneurs. You have to bring in the education sector. And then you have to encourage the venture capitalists. But that's your policy. Your policy is number one. What type of policy are you going to inject to stimulate market growth? That's the most important thing. What type of policy do you put in place to encourage a private sector and entrepreneurship to come into that ecosystem? You have to incentivize. And again, you have to create economic hotspots. Your land mass is about 15,000 square kilometers. So you have a land reserve of about 3,337 minus plus. So you got a great geographical location. Now, on the north side of Ondo State, you've got Ekiti and Kogi State. So that's a great opportunity for you to trade and connect into the north central market.
All right.
On the west side, you have Ogun State and Oyo State. That links you up into another market value chain, which you're already in.
Okay.
And then on the east side, you have Edo State. Then on the south side, you have the Atlantic Ocean, where you can integrate renewable energy. You can have marine energy, you can have solar energy, you can have wind energy. And then develop what I call the virtual power plant system that will house all your energy resource within the traditional energy and renewable energy to produce the needed economic gain through entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much, sir. I wish we had all the time to listen to all of this, but we don't. But I hope that we find sometime to listen to all of this more and get to know more about how we can help the problems of unemployment in Nigeria. But thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, Jack Rich. Thank you so much, sir. It's a pleasure to have you here.